It was a shocking moment for everyone who knew us as a couple to hear the words of Adura, my wife of over 16 years. She said them in front of our family and friends, who threw her a surprise party to celebrate her achievements. The incredible looks I received suggested that most of those present were wondering how I would react to what Adura was saying. This was not surprising to me because I had recently learned that she had made many changes in her life, without including me in those changes, and I knew that it was only a matter of time and place before we publicly announced the end of our marriage. Even though I hadn't seen her in person in over 6 months, Adura looked good. After I missed her birthday due to quarantine measures, it was clear that she had lost 20 pounds. I wondered if this was the result of high-end drug use. At 36 years old, Adura still had a slender figure and a height of 5 feet 8 inches, which made many men look at her. Her new hairstyle highlighted her face, making it more sophisticated. An added bonus was that she wore 2-inch heels, which toned her lower body, making her look even slimmer. Between the two physical changes, she looked younger and brighter than before her last trip abroad. Where she lost weight, the figure only better accentuated her natural curves. Everyone was impressed by her appearance. The expensive and classy Parisian-style outfit was too chic for the place, but what she wore highlighted her new sensibility with brilliance and elegance. It was Adura, whom we were not used to seeing. Everyone knew that she had made it clear that there had been changes in her life that we were unaware of. Her image advertised that she was now an attractive woman who was back on the market and ready to meet new people, even while married. She seemed to be telling the world that she had found a new sense of freedom from social norms, and I just had to suck it up and accept it. She was demonstrating that she was ready for new sexual adventures with the right person. Some suggested that we had an open marriage. From others, I caught looks full of sadness or contempt. If she wanted to publicly humiliate me, she succeeded perfectly. Tara, her longtime best friend and soon to be her enemy, walked up to me. It was obvious to most of those present that my wife and I had not spoken since her arrival. Every time I approached her, she would deliberately turn away and walk away. Even the guests, seeing this public display, stayed away from me. I became an untouchable person that no one wanted to talk to. In her style, she sent a message to everyone, and they got it. However, Tara came up to me with her daughter and naturally hugged me. "Who is this woman we see, Ray?" Tara asked with a knowing smile, trying to make sure those nearby could hear her. "This is a newly minted icon in the world of travelers who has no idea what is happening here in reality," I replied. "Adura seems to be in complete control of the situation, but in reality she doesn't understand anything." "I have to thank you for that," Tara said quietly. "Now that we see the full picture, we understand how she used her methods to play her games. I'll be happy to give her her final reward. We have a lot of catching up to do. I thought you'd be happy about what's going to happen. I'm definitely glad." "Tara, I promise I'll be there when the time is right," I said. "The appearance that I'm not in the know should last for a while. I want it to remain a complete surprise. By the end of the evening, everyone will know that I'm not the helpless husband she takes me for. Just remember that I'll be busy for the next few days dealing with the consequences of today's events." "I think I just want it to be over, which explains why you look like you're trying to figure everything out," Tara said. "If we had known before what we know now, everything would have been different." Tara was right in many ways. The problem is that sometimes you have to wait to gain knowledge. Tonight, one way or another, the relationship between Adura, Tara, and me will change forever. "Ray, I told Tina during a long conversation before we arrived who you were and why things were the way they were," Tara said with a smile. "I have arranged everything so that you will sit together for dinner. With what happens, we will be freed from the shackles of the past." I've caught glimpses of Tina over the years whenever we get together. Looking at her again, I couldn't help but be proud. Tina was an amazingly beautiful girl, like her mother. We started talking about what she wanted to do after school, and I found out that she was going to study engineering and design, which made me excited. During dinner, Tina tactfully asked the questions I expected her to ask. By the end of the dinner, we both realized that we were acceptable to the other in a changing relationship. She grew up as an only child and would soon have a whole family when things calmed down after tonight. I couldn't help but wonder how my three children would react to the news that they had a sister they didn't know about. It's funny how this truth wouldn't have come to light if Adura hadn't done what she did. I was surprised when her father reported that Adura, his pride and joy, had finally been released by Australian government officials after a 6-month quarantine. Once she landed in New York, she had to be tested again and quarantined for 2 weeks until she was given a clean bill of health. The state and city couldn't get their act together, making the process more difficult. This Friday afternoon, she took a small private jet for the final flight to our regional airport. Jessie, her right hand, flew with her. They've worked together for most of the last 4 years. They arrived just in time for the formal dinner and dance. We both had busy careers, and no one knew what was going on behind closed doors, and we wanted to keep it that way. 4 years ago, our world changed dramatically. Her father, who became a board member, turned over day-to-day management of the company to his eldest daughter, my wife. In his opinion, the results were excellent. Under her leadership, the company prospered. The conglomerate hasn't posted such good financial results in years. Since she took the reins, the growth has been staggering. Their main competitor was hit hard by the new programs it introduced. Our three children, with the help of my wife's parents, rented a medium-sized conference room at our favorite club, of which we were all members. They hired the club's catering staff to prepare and serve dinner. A bar was also opened as all expenses were written off as business expenses. Since there were no restrictions in the region due to the virus, everyone invited came. We had about 50 to 60 people, besides family, all the elite of the business world, who came for a private event. It was all a celebration because it combined a homecoming party, a belated birthday celebration, and a celebration of the conglomerate's successes. A private limousine brought Adura and Jessie straight to the venue as soon as she left the airport after her final flight home. We rented it for the evening, so I knew her luggage would be available to her when she left the event. When they approached me with this idea, I immediately agreed, but no one understood why. The fact that I agreed without any persuasion puzzled them because it went against everything I had ever done. After all, everyone knew that I was the family member who didn't like big events and often refused to attend most of them because I never felt like I belonged. Over the past 10 years, everyone could count the events I've attended on one hand. My problems in this regard stemmed from insecurities that I carried with me since childhood. Those who knew about my life path saw how they influenced everything. As a result, even to this day, I did not feel comfortable around people with power, influence, and money. And so I walk among the elite of society, communicate with them as if I belonged. Most of them thought that I married above my class, and Adura married below hers. Our neighbors, Jesse and Janice Yelland, attended the event. Both of them came from families with old money and carefully guarded their image. Like anyone with old money, they behaved in a way to show their power and influence, but only used it when they had to. Everything they did in public was done with grace and class. My oldest daughter, Debbie, was going to be a rock star because she could convince most people to do anything with her personality. I asked her to do what I thought was impossible. She was the one who convinced Janice to come, even though she knew Jessie would be there. From the moment Janice arrived in a sleeveless, tight white dress, she captured my attention. Ever since we first met, I was naturally drawn to her. Knowing their personal situation, seeing Jessie and Janice together, one could believe that a miracle had happened. They were a couple 10 years younger than my wife and I. We thought they were both still finding their place in the world. Each of them, in their own way, sought guidance and support from those with whom they interacted closely or looked up to. Unfortunately, they will find out how different this leadership was. Janice was an attractive woman, but when we first met, she lacked confidence. But being our neighbor apparently affected her so much that every time you saw her, you could tell she was becoming more confident. She had a personality that was simply attractive. As a result, we became close friends. Jesse, due to his lack of life experience, became stuck in a relationship with an older woman who manipulated him into receiving personal favors from him that would make 50 Shades of Grey seem innocent. I think Jesse thought this woman loved him, but he finds out he was wrong. I prayed that from tonight he would begin to realize what was happening before it was too late for him to save himself. The bitch he had been servicing for the past 4 years had discovered a greater penchant for perversion. Her sexual awakening came about thanks to the global lifestyle she was forced to adapt to due to her latest position in her family's international company. Everyone was surprised to see them together, as everyone knew that Jesse and Janice were going through a legal separation that was increasingly looking like a full divorce. But as a couple, it was nice to see that they could communicate with each other peacefully. Janice was in a terrible state for several weeks after he left their marriage, as it was a surprise to Janice. With our spouses absent so often, our friendship grew so strong that Adura's children and mine called her aunt because of the respect they had for her. It was not unusual for Janice to help my daughters with women's affairs because their mother was never around. It was on my shoulder that Janice cried. In my mind, I loved her and felt the need to protect her. It was while holding her hand that Janice revealed to me that Jesse had always considered himself bisexual. I knew that Jesse's biggest problem was that he could not live with the guilt and shame he felt when returning home to his wife because of the new role he had been thrust into. He needed to step away from his lovers, needs to understand what he had gotten himself into. Most men cannot satisfy the needs of one woman, but he was balancing between two. Something had to break, and when it did, Janice got hurt. Now I realized that Jesse didn't know how to treat women. Jesse's mistress, an older and experienced woman, knew how to control him like a well-tuned violin. Jesse, being naive about human behavior, was easily manipulated by her into becoming what she needed to satisfy her newly discovered dominant sexual needs. For Jesse's mistress, her new position and sexual interests gave her something she didn't understand: power and control. I wondered if she had kept his manhood under lock and key to ensure his loyalty before finding out who she was, finding the pure pleasure of unlimited sex while using it. She found that the release she received from this sexual experience gave her a way to relieve the stress she felt daily due to the responsibilities of her new position. The more stress she felt, the more time she spent finding relief in wild sex games because it gave her emotional stimulation. Each such experience brought her peace of mind and allowed her to sleep peacefully. She didn't see that all that was happening was that she was being fucked to the point of exhaustion. She was able to maintain the appearance of a devoted wife and mother while returning home from numerous business trips because no one knew what was going on. An added benefit was that she could be herself without demanding extraordinary results from herself. Only recently did I find out the real reason for the breakup between Jesse and Janice, and who Jesse's mistress was behind his wife's back. His affair with this woman began almost 4 years ago, when he was convinced to join her family's organization. My wife and Jesse had remarkably similar careers in their family's conglomerates, and it was not unusual for them to run into each other at events in which their companies participated. During their breaks, they developed a relationship based on trust. It also helped that she had already held some of the positions he aspired to. Both, being involved in global conglomerates, often traveled in the same circles. Jesse was convinced by his father and brothers to join her organization as their families began the long process of merging their companies. They were just weeks away from announcing a merger, which would have meant billions of dollars in additional net worth for all of them. As a result, their relationship began to develop once Jesse felt comfortable in his new work situation. After a few weeks, Adura realized that he was pliable enough to follow her into the hidden world she began to explore. That's when the seduction of Jesse's mind and body began. A competitive athlete throughout his college years, Jesse was still in great physical shape and attractive. He was naturally tall and slender, which made him very attractive to many women. How Janice managed to get him to commit to marriage was still a mystery. We all knew that because of who he was constantly being picked on. Adura's company maintained several private penthouses around the world for management to use when needed, no questions asked. It was like a gift from fate that served her. Adura turned one in Paris into her temporary home away from home due to the need to travel frequently. Since sexual and sensual things were more open and accepted in this society, Adura used this space to further explore the dark side of her new, exciting dominant persona and the sexual benefits it brought her. Adura never saw her behavior as an addiction, although in many ways it was. I later learned that she used some of the dominance techniques she had mastered to sway those who opposed her plans to her point of view. All she had to do was find the weak link and bring him into her growing group of subordinates. After 6 months, Adura began regularly sharing her king-size bed with Jesse. It was then that she began to take control of him, gently and lovingly leading him into her world of perversion. I learned that he voluntarily adapted to Adura's new sexual interests because she made him believe that he was in love with her. It didn't hurt their developing relationship, considering how he saw himself. No one noticed the difference in their relationship because their offices were nearby, and they were always seen together in public. They were away every 2 weeks working on further improvements and optimizations for a smoother merger. No one knew how intense their emotional and physical relationship was becoming. During this time, they secured a majority stake in 2 large companies that regularly supplied them with the materials they needed, allowing for continued sustainable growth at very controlled costs. I didn't even know how deep it went until a week ago. Only Janice noticed small changes in his appearance and diet. After one of many trips, she returned home to find out that he had started using expensive men's cosmetics. One of Jesse's activities was swimming, and he installed a professionally designed pool on his property so he could do the required number of laps each day. It came as a complete surprise to Janice when Jesse announced that he was going to have all his body hair professionally removed to improve his swimming speed. For Janice, some of these things just didn't add up. An envelope addressed to me appeared in one of the offices of my company. It was large and marked private and confidential. The staff put it aside and forgot to tell me about it. I asked to be delivered to the branch where I worked. When I found out that he had arrived, I went to find out what was the matter. I found out that it had been in the branch for more than a month. The contents of the envelope, without a return address, turned out to be very revealing. Some of the professionally taken photographs showed my wife Adura completely naked, tied up and restrained, while a masked man and woman wearing nothing, but those masks used her body to satisfy their sexual desires. I later learned that the woman's name was Jasmine and the masked man was Jesse. Whoever sent the photos clearly wanted to show that this behavior had been going on for some time. When I laid out the photos on the conference table, I saw that parts of the images overlapped. By matching duplicates, I combined the photos to create a wide picture of Jesse being used by 2 women. Under the photo, someone wrote, "This is how we reward the feminized bitches who work for us." It reminded me of when my wife, her best friend Tara, and I were just starting to get to know each other. We tried to understand why some women choose their partners based on their ability to be formed and feminized. It seemed to be a constant topic of discussion in their dorm. Being a little naive, it was a shocking experience for me. Even with the mask, I recognized her. The woman who made Jesse into a subordinate was my wife Adura. Feminizing male lovers was part of her new perverted fantasy. From the photograph, I understood why my wife thought I was a sexual Puritan. What they were doing was far beyond my understanding. I collected the photos to return them to the envelope, and that's when I discovered the small blue flash drive. I connected it to the computer. When I opened the file, I realized where the photos came from. The three's sexual activities were filmed from start to finish. The sounds of their voices still resonated in my ears. They clearly enjoyed the process. Jesse even chose what he would wear and how he would present himself to his ladies before the session. I sent the envelope and all the photos to the shredder and locked the flash drive in the office safe. Their own words proved that this relationship had been going on for some time. Then I realized that our marriage remained only a facade. This also explained why she deliberately found ways to avoid home for long periods. After watching all this, I called her best friend Tara, since she was a famous divorce lawyer for the rich and famous. Over the next few days, my family felt like I was walking on hot stones. I did everything I could to keep what I knew a secret. My children could not understand why I became so quiet at home, but they stopped questioning my behavior when I gave instructions to the house staff. The party was almost over. It was a huge success. The band hired by my wife's parents had just taken a break before their third and final set. My beloved wife, Adur, and I have always been the complete opposite of each other in our thoughts, beliefs, and lifestyle. Many who knew us all our lives thought that nothing would work out for us. I met her in the summer when I was hitchhiking around Europe before modern restrictions began. I met her near a Hungarian church, which I photographed because of its architectural value. It was so old that it had some old traditional Christian symbols, long lost, hand carved into the stone. For example, the name of God carved in the native language above the church doors. Today's society would have no idea what these letters meant because even in the Bible, the tradition of not using his name was taken to extremes. Modern versions have deliberately removed all traces of this name. The elites began to erase the name of God from the memory of humanity. She was there on holiday with her best friend, who was also present at the party. They were both free spirits then, and, to some extent, still are. Both were prone to thoughts more typical of the substance culture and hippies of the 70s. They weren't virgins when I met them, and neither was I. They both had beautiful figures, which made them quite attractive, and they dressed a little too revealing for my tastes. Adur constantly showed off her sexuality with her huge breasts, partially exposed and bouncing freely. I found it a little off-putting. To me, she looked like a cheap, low-class, easily accessible woman and not a lady from a wealthy family. On the other hand, I grew up in a family that was not blessed to be wealthy. Everything I have achieved in life, I have earned myself or borrowed through student loans to get my education. It taught me to be more reserved and quiet in everything I did. I didn't try to be the center of attention like they always did. I counted every penny then, just as I do now. My wife thought that I still had the first nickel I earned. Even today, I was considered a private person, even though the business I had built from scratch was now worth millions. My architecture firm now has 7 offices across the country and is considered one of the prestigious firms on the North American continent. At least twice a year, one of the buildings we designed would be featured in one of the monthly magazines in the field. However, little was known about my personal life because I quickly realized that I achieved more when I kept my name and identity in the shadows. I let our projects speak for themselves. Adur learned that I didn't talk much about myself when she accidentally knocked me over while I was on my knees trying to get an angle shot of the church they had come to check out. While Adur tried to apologize, Tara helped me collect the lenses that had fallen out of the bag I had placed next to me. That was one of the things I found attractive about her. When our eyes met, mutual interest arose. We even checked for damage before we introduced ourselves to each other. At the end of the day, we had lunch together in one of the street cafes in Budapest and learned that all 3 of us studied at different universities in New York. Returning to school, I found Tara. We went on dates for a while until Adur found out about it. Adur took this as a personal challenge because in her eyes, her friend had surpassed her, and this could not be ignored. Thus began our long relationship. It was only a year after the wedding, when Adur was pregnant, that I realized that she had been manipulating us all from the very beginning to gain an advantage. Because I now understood, I was beginning to believe that Adura had intentionally gotten pregnant and was the first to inform me to make a commitment and marry her because of my strong sense of duty. Now Tara and I are pretty sure that Adura and I weren't sleeping together when Debbie was conceived. We produced 3 children, and until the last 4 years, it was a perfect marriage. Everything was going great until she got her last promotion, which she accepted because our kids were getting older. We were now like 2 ships crossing in the night, and the sex life was similar, allowing her to develop new tastes and attitudes, more amenable to the new lifestyle she had created for herself as a world traveler. I am now forever grateful to my father-in-law for the prenuptial agreement he made me sign. He will forever leave me in the driver's seat, moving forward. In a way, I was angry at myself for keeping faithfulness to marriage vows when Adura did not. Our 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, took the microphone during the band's break to express your warm greetings and congratulations on your birthday. I also said a few words to thank my children and my wife's parents for organizing the surprise for Adura. I congratulated my wife on achieving another milestone in her life. My wife took the microphone, already slightly tipsy. I want to thank Mom, Dad, Debbie, Dina, and David for giving me this surprise. I wonder how you managed to overcome my husband's objections, because he is and always has been like that. Raymond is so mentally old that he is simply a relic, because he refuses to keep up with what is considered normal in our ever-changing society. These were the first words addressed to me all evening. Knowing that the situation was going downhill quickly, I tuned it out. At that moment, I fully realized how little Adura cared about me or us as a married couple. I was the only one who needed to look after the children while she was an active member of the sexually liberated club. The love she once felt for me as her life partner is now long gone. Because of her new lifestyle, there was no love, no desire, no will left in her for me. Her utter contempt for who and what I am was expressed loud and clear to everyone present. Even my children, who were usually blind to everything but what was in front of them, had facial expressions that proved that they had imprinted her thoughts on their minds. Debbie, our eldest, came up to me and took my hand in hers. As we looked at each other, I noticed tears in her eyes. I knew that Debbie realized that she was watching the breakdown of her parents' marriage right before her eyes. I haven't changed, but her views on who and what I am have changed radically over the past 4 years. I knew that it was because of who and what she now regularly associated herself with, and their outlook on life in general, that it changed her. As my wife continued to talk, I used my cell phone to call our staff to make sure all of her personal items were packed and ready to go as soon as they were told where to send them. Surprisingly, I found myself in a state of complete peace because I saw in what was about to happen a release from a burden that I had carried for too long. The very aspects of my personality that had attracted Adura to me in the first place were now the very things she hated. That little impromptu speech she gave made me see where my flaws were in her eyes. Believe me, I knew there were many of them. You see, I'm proud of who I am and what I am. I am proud of my moral values and the fact that truth and honesty still mean something to me. I believe in responsibility and that the words that a person says still mean something. I pride myself on believing that there is no harm to all of humanity, even those whom I consider my enemies. All my building design awards have been won for how environmentally friendly the building was. Each one has been designed to leave as little a carbon footprint as possible. Based on my reputation, I was a leader in this field. My beliefs allow me to stand up for what I believe in and defend it at all costs. I still believe in fair pay for fair work and that everyone should pay their own way. I believe that if you make your bed, then you and only you must deal with the circumstances you create. I still believed in our Father and His Son Jesus Christ, who many now believe is a figment of the imagination of an uneducated man, which the elite picked up and used to create a fictional book as a way to socially engineer the masses. After all, you would have to be a complete idiot to believe and adhere to the false doctrine and morals taught by the Bible. I still believe that it is what is inside of me that makes me the person I am, not the shell of my body by which many judge me. I am proud to call all people, no matter their race or color, my brothers and sisters because we all have the same Father. Unfortunately, for most educated people, the Bible cannot be true because we are descended from the fifth and slime of the earth, and as humans, most of them have the morals to prove it. That's why there was nothing morally wrong or right in their eyes. At the end of the day, they are just acting like animals and following their basic instincts. I'm still grateful that I don't hate those who judged me because in their eyes, I don't have the right perspective. I think they are like my wife who sees that my morals, principles, faith, and standards in general mean nothing in our society. After all, if you can teach them to act, perform, and satisfy your particular sexual tastes when they are young, it will guarantee you some very enjoyable and self-serving, very erotic moments. At the end of the day, to me, the only thing that matters to most is what's in it. Many animals in the animal kingdom have no problem killing their young. Most of society found a legal way to bring the same right into human society, although everyone believed that life should be protected. Even those who claimed to have some kind of intelligence superior to the animal world proved by their constant behavior that they did not have it. All this time, Tina and Tara were next to me. Tara was glad we accepted someone else. "I think I better go get my paperwork and get ready for the show," Tara said with a smile. "Tina, you want to come because people are starting to wonder what's going on." Tina leaned over, kissed me on the cheek, and whispered, "Thank you, Dad, for making this an evening I will never forget." Janice Yelland came up to me and said, "Raymond, you're handling Adura's comments very well. I would be angry if Jess said any of the things she said about me." "Before we got married, Adura's father made Janice sign a prenuptial agreement," I explained. "Tara, Adura's best friend, will, at my request, take the microphone to tell everyone who Adura's longtime lover is." "Did you know?" Janice asked. "I suspected, but I didn't know who," I answered. "Evidence was provided to me earlier this week from someone I don't even know. When Tara saw the evidence that was presented to me, she volunteered to become my lawyer. Face in a cruel manner. Since this was already planned, we felt this was the perfect location to serve them both." Janice looked at me in a way that made me think I should explain further, so I added, "Tara and I now believe that Adura has been manipulating the two of us since we first met during our university days. As a result, a lot of truth has emerged, and Tara, her daughter Tina, and I are looking forward to life without Adura's influence." Leaning towards her, I whispered quietly so that no one would hear. "Tara and I looked through our entire history and discovered that I slept with her when Debbie was conceived." I'll never forget the look on Janice's face when I realized what I had said, and then she said, "Brilliant. Tara is known as the best divorce lawyer in certain sections and is the one handling Jesse and my divorce. You came tonight expecting Adura to do what she does. You give her one last hurrah before she falls. Everyone here will feel like you set them up to turn them into Adura fools." It was during this period that I learned that Tara never got married because she was still carrying a torch for me. It seems we both realized too late what Adura was doing to all of us. For both of us, this was the moment we had both been waiting for because her behavior freed us from the bonds we had created. Past and present will hit Adura hard tonight. After leaving the office, Tara and I took a long, leisurely walk through a nearby state park. We discussed all the major events that the three of us shared, seeing it all from different perspectives. It was then that I learned about her true feelings for me. After discussing the pros and cons of starting a new relationship with each other, we decided to take a chance and see if it could develop into something further in the future and try to see where it leads. We were still walking when a couple with children asked us to photograph them with a panoramic view of the Appalachian Mountains in the background. We agreed. I took several pictures, and the last one was of a father and his two sons. My wife asked us if we had children. Tara replied, "We have 4, 3 girls and a boy, and we are deciding whether we want to raise another couple." "My parents do this," the husband said. "They feel they are better at parenting now that they have more time to parent." At this point, we started discussing whether we wanted to have children if we were together. We were both surprised that the other was open to the idea. That's when I got the shock that would change my life forever, when Tara said, "Besides, it's time for Tina to meet the person who helped conceive her, if that's okay." I stood in shock, unable to speak, realizing what I had heard. If my memory serves me right, it was when Adura told Tara that we slept together. It wasn't true, but it caused our breakup. "Why didn't you tell me then?" I asked Tara, looking her straight in the eyes. "She was my best friend and had never lied to me until that moment," Tara replied. I had no reason not to believe her until this morning. What we watched together made me reconsider everything. I realized that there were many things she misled us about. At this point, we found a bench and began a long conversation about our shared history with Adora, from the journey where we first met until today. As we said goodbye, we shared our first emotional kiss since I got engaged to Adora. It left us with a taste of what was to come and a new understanding of what lay ahead. It was interesting to discover who we were without Adora's presence in our lives. "He's here," Janice said, looking around to see if she could tell from the faces who Adora's lover was. "I told Jesse I believe he's involved with another woman, and when I find out who she is, I'm going to kill the bitch. I already bought the gun I'm going to use." I watched Tara approach Adora and was grateful that she never got married. I always thought she would make some happy man's life complete. For a woman prone to wildness, Tara always did everything in moderation. It didn't take me long to realize that Tara had always been drawn into Adora's wild affairs against her will. I didn't notice that Janice noticed the exchange of glances between Tara and me. To her, it spoke volumes, although to us it might have just been an act of friendship. Everything Tara did seemed to be the result of an innocence caught in a situation that had gone too far. Adora, on the other hand, did this clearly out of curiosity and an attempt to get by with minimal consequences. Tara reached Adora, and I watched with Debbie as she asked her wife for a microphone. The look of confusion on Adora's face at Tara's excitement made me smile. I noticed Tina watching me closely as she stood with the rest of my children. David and Tina were deep in serious conversation. Debbie just came up to me. Adora's mother, whom I loved, was in a bad mood, clearly upset by her daughter's behavior. "Debbie, maybe you should go see your sister and brother and be close to them because something big is about to happen." "If I'm thinking correctly," Debbie replied, "Tara is your divorce lawyer, and Mom is about to get a subpoena." I nodded and said quietly, "And her long-term lover too. It's time to end the facade of our marriage." "We all thought she was having an affair," my daughter replied. "With her busy work schedule, she is never home. This created the perfect storm for her. My siblings and I are not impressed with this new version of our mom. It seems like the virus has been a mixed blessing for her because it has allowed her to keep up appearances while having an acceptable excuse." "Let your siblings know that I will explain everything when we get home," I said before Debbie headed off to her grandparents and her siblings. When Tara introduced herself to everyone present, I walked to the center of the room. I wanted to look into the faces of my wife and her lover as they were served. That's when everyone realized that something else was going on. When Tara asked Jesse Yellen to join them, I smiled a smug smile. Janice looked at me and said silently, "Is Jesse her lover?" I nodded my head affirmatively. I knew I had to keep an eye on her because Janice's face turned white. Once Jesse joined them, it took Tara less than a minute to hand Adora and Jess the papers. "Congratulations, Adir. You are getting divorce papers based on spousal neglect and adultery," Tara said. "It also means that our long friendship has come to an end." Turning to Jess, Tara said, "You're being sued for interfering with marriage." "Adir, when Raymond showed me his evidence, we both realized that you have been playing with our lives since our university days. It's time to pay for this game with the last move," Tara added. Both were stunned. I don't think any of them believed they would get caught. As I looked around the room, I noticed expressions on many people's faces. Some were clearly in shock. Everyone seemed to quickly change their mind about me. Adir's face turned white. I laughed until I saw Janice open her bag as if she was going to get something. Her face expressed pure rage. I quickly ran to stand in front of her. I was pretty sure I knew what she was going to do. She was just trying to reach for a small revolver when I grabbed her small wrist and pulled her hand away. "Let me go," Janice said in a loud and very upset voice. "I have to do this. I gave my word." Pulling her face close to mine, I whispered in her ear, "Grow up. They are not worth you losing your freedom because of the pain, anger, and rage you feel. Believe me, Janice, I thought about killing them both myself." That's when her tears started flowing. I pulled Janice towards me, hugging her tightly, partly to make sure she had no way of getting to her gun. Looking around the room, I realized that we had become the center of attention. My wife's parents and our 3 children were still in shock, but they realized that I had stopped Janice from doing something. I began to slowly lead Janice towards the exit, knowing that I needed to get her away from what was happening. I wasn't going to let her go until we left the conference room. Janice was an extraordinarily beautiful woman in her own way. Her soft complexion allowed her to get by with less makeup than most. For me, this made her even more beautiful and desirable. Her naturally red curly hair gave the impression that there was a natural tenderness and love in her features. With a figure that included 34 double C breasts, a 26-inch waist, and 36-inch hips, it was clear that she wasn't one to say thank you and leave, but rather a keeper. She had a figure in which a good man could get lost for years. I realized that for both of us, our emotions and sensitivity were at the highest level. Until we got them under control, it was best to say as little as possible. As we slowly walked past Adir's parents, I said, "Mom, Dad, can you make sure the kids get home? I'll be back as soon as I've got Janice calm and settled. Then I will answer all your questions to the best of my ability." "Fair enough," Adir's mother said. "Raymond, just know that from what has been revealed, we don't blame you, but we do have a lot of questions." Father Adir, looking at me, silently asked, "What was in the bag?" I answered him in the same way, "Gun." The expression that appeared on his face said it all. Holding Janice's warm, soft body pressed tightly against mine in close contact, our legs and bodies touched each other repeatedly as I led her to the exit. As she got ready and I continued to move forward, the stimulation from our bodies naturally rubbing against each other, along with her pleasant scent entering my nostrils, made me very aroused despite what was happening. I hope her figure protected me. Luckily, I took her out of the room and no one noticed my condition. We had just walked out of the rented room into the hallway when we separated so I could close the doors. Janice, still a little emotional, said, "Thank you for stopping me from digging myself a hole that I couldn't get out of." With these words, she leaned towards me and kissed me tenderly on the cheek, adding, "This is to naturally confirm that I am still a woman whom an honest man finds attractive." We walked down the corridor to the main entrance. I gave the parking attendant my ticket, and he quickly went to get my car. "I came by taxi," Janice said. "Can you take me home?" "With pleasure," I replied. "But we need to make a few stops, if that doesn't conflict with your plans." This suited her. The first stop was at the office, where I left the on-flash drive. I made 2 copies before returning the original to the safe. I did this so Janice would have her own proof to divorce Jesse. When I handed it over, I explained that it would contain too much information, but it would be enough that she could deprive Jesse of everything. Then we headed to the police station. As we pulled up, Janice said, "You want me to come in and turn in my gun, don't you? For a while, I think it's better that you don't have this temptation before your eyes," I said. "An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure." I watched her enter the station in the long, body-hugging white dress she had arrived in. I was sad that life in general doesn't always allow us to appreciate what we have. Janice's backside had the kind of butt that many men would die for. Her walk in heels was exciting. I only hoped that in time she would find the right man for the right reason. It took her about 15 minutes before she returned to my car. Once she was settled and closed the car door, she moved to sit right next to me. It brought back memories of my youth. "I hope no one who wasn't there tonight sees us," I said, "because it will give them the wrong impression." "Why do you always find the right words?" said Janice with a smile. "When is it necessary?" I started the car and drove off. Janice snuggled as close to me as possible. I must admit, I was flattered by her attention. "I explained everything to the female officer before I handed her the revolver," Janice said. "She congratulated me for being proactive and said they would give me a month to think about it before sending it to be destroyed." She noted that what you did required a lot of love and respect for yourself as a person. I have to admit she's right. We reached her estate in 45 minutes. Janice kept her head on my shoulder the whole way. We hardly spoke as we were lost in our thoughts. As we drove past my house, I noticed that no one had returned yet. After parking, I escorted Janice to her door to make sure she could enter. "Ray, could you come in for a minute?" Janice asked. As soon as the door closed behind us, Janice surprised me by turning to face me. Without saying a word, she aggressively attacked me with many deep, long, and tender kisses. Each was stronger and more demanding than the previous one. We got so carried away that I automatically began to explore the softness of her body. Her flesh was soft, warm, and pliable in my hands. It had been a long time since a woman had been as aggressive with me as Janice was. I knew that if I didn't leave, I would get lost. When we stopped kissing to catch our breath, there were no doubts or regrets. I saw the burning fire of desire in her eyes. Janice looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I know that you love me as much as I love you, and that we are not in love with each other. But it is with love that I am going to take you to my bedroom to undress you and exhaust you to the point of exhaustion. If you think you can take advantage of me because I'm in an emotionally weak state," Janice said, "get it out of your head right now." We didn't even get to the sheets before I was lost in exploring her unknown body. We fell asleep feeling completely at peace with our naked bodies entwined with each other. I woke up to find Janice cuddled up next to me, looking at me with a smile and a look of peace. When I got up to use the bathroom, she crawled under the sheets and waited for me to return. Within seconds, we were lost in each other's spell again. Every moment was pure joy and excitement. We made love twice before we spoke. Although she was much younger than me, this did not bother her. The entire time we were together, we were inches apart. She raised her head to me, and we exchanged several tender kisses. It was nice to just relax and be together, cuddling. "Ray, you showed me what it means to make love to someone who truly loves and accepts you for who you are. With a true emotional connection and a natural desire to put the needs of another first, you showed me what true love is. Thanks to you, I will never accept less." We spent quite a bit of time just cuddling, enjoying the moment as if we had no rush in the world. We got dressed and were drinking our first cup of coffee when Janice's phone rang. It was hard to believe that it was almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Her mother's driver, who was standing at the gate, called. She flew to be with her daughter because she heard the news. Opening the gates of the estate, Janice said, "Mom's visit is perfect. You can tell everyone that I was so upset that you stayed with me until we found someone who could give me the moral support I needed to move on." "I think I should finish my coffee and leave," I said. "Just remember, if you need anything, I'm here." "Plan on me needing your special reassurance at least until the divorce is over," Janice said with a laugh. "Or until you and Tara decide where your common interests go, whichever is longer, if you agree." I just put my empty cup of coffee in the sink. I turned to Janice, who was standing next to me, took her into my arms, and kissed her the same way it all began. Janice responded the same way she did last night. We both understood that if her mother had not come, we would have ended up in bed again. We both realized that we couldn't get enough of each other. After we stopped, Janice said with a smile from ear to ear, "That's exactly the answer I like. Ray, call me later so I can let you know what's going on." She walked me to the door when her mother arrived. Janice quickly explained who I was and why I was still in the suit. Having finished with that, I headed to my house next door, knowing what I would have to face. I knew I needed to hide my feelings. I couldn't remember a time when I was so horny or in tune with one woman. Janice and our love made what I've been through these past 4 years worthwhile. I had just left her bed a few hours ago, and I already wanted to be with her again. When I got home, the first thing I knew was that Janice had called to let them know I was on my way because her mother was there to give her the moral support she needed. Adir's parents, Elizabeth and Richard Drury, stayed overnight. Once I got through the greeting, I handed Richard the flash drive and asked him to view it privately in my office. We all gathered together in the living room. I explained what Janice was going to do and said that after she had calmed down a little, we took the small revolver to the police station. When Richard returned, he handed me the flash drive, which I put in my trouser pocket. Mom, Dad, children. From what I gathered, Adir's affair with Jesse began about 6 months after his family asked him to join the company to help find ways to make the merger between the two conglomerates smoother, I said. Records will show that even during the quarantine they lived together, although they officially had separate residences. My mother-in-law and children seemed to accept my explanation of what was happening until my father-in-law opened his mouth. Ray is trying to protect you, Richard said. Their behavior is worse than you can imagine. I think I can honestly say that if I had known what Ray knew before last night, he wouldn't have been able to stop me. Elizabeth looked at her husband as if studying his face, and after a couple of seconds she said, "You are serious." "Yes, I'm serious," Richard replied. Her behavior brought not only shame and disgrace to our family, but also to the conglomerate itself. The woman I saw in the video is not the daughter we raised. I apologized, explaining that I needed to shave and change clothes. Deanna walked with me to my bedroom. "We all talked last night," Deanna said. "We were all worried about you and what you were going through." "How are you, your sister and brother coping with this?" I asked. "I think we all realize that knowing is better than not knowing," Deanna responded, because many questions were answered. After a heated discussion, we all agreed that Mom left not only you, but also all of us. I stopped, took my daughter in my arms and said, "I have long suspected that something was going on, and only this week I received proof. Deanna, this still hurts and will continue to hurt for a while until we find a way to deal with the consequences." With these words, the pain, tears, and emotions she had been holding back broke out. It's in moments like these that we realize the damage that is done when someone's behavior destroys a family. I held my middle daughter until she calmed down. "I was the one who answered the phone when Aunt Janice called," Deanna explained. "We talked a little. She told me what the cop said when she turned in the gun. 'My grandparents said you risked yourself to protect our mother after what she did.' What I did was nothing special," I said. "Any good friend would stop their friend from doing something stupid by losing control like I did." "Maybe, but in Janice's eyes, you're walking on water now," Deanna said, "and maybe you always will be." I smiled and thought about our love before continuing the conversation. "What news about your mother?" I asked. "Jessie and her left right after you," Deanna explained. "Grandpa found out from the limousine driver that they returned to the airport and took the first flight." "Why?" I asked. "Grandma told everyone that you stopped Janice from taking out the gun," Deanna responded. "Many people came up to us and asked us to convey their apologies for their behavior towards you." I smiled and explained, "No one was supposed to know about this. Your grandmother shouldn't have disclosed this." "But it's true," Deanna said. "Yes, but in the grand scheme of things it doesn't matter," I said. "It rarely has. It was most likely exaggerated by rumors into something that never happened. This is how the tabloids we see in stores make so much money. They twist the truth into something else, and most readers believe it." "Like Mom did it to all of us, right, Dad?" Deanna asked sadly. "What's even sadder is that her behavior shows that in her eyes, neither of us were worth being told the truth," I said, "and in society her behavior did not seem wrong." "When Grandpa said you protected us all," Deanna asked, "was he telling the truth?" "You're too young to know all the details," I said, "but what your mother did to Jessie would make 50 Shades of Grey seem bland." "Grandma doesn't even want to talk about that movie or watch it," Deanna said. "According to her, it is humiliating, demoralizing, and nothing but dirty sex. And the difference in views on this film depends on personal moral values," I said. "Some people believe in them and live with them, others don't." "Anything else I need to know?" I added. Tara, and then Tina called wanting to see if we'd heard from you, Deanna added. Both expressed concern. Do me a favor and call one of them so they know I'm okay, I said, and let them know that I will call them this evening. Tina asked a lot of questions about you, first to David last night and to Debbie when she called earlier, Deanna said. So much so that it started to interest us all. I think I know why, and I promise you will get the answers to explain everything, I said. When everything calms down. Everything has been calm since I got home on Saturday. I was grateful for this because it gave me and my children time to adjust. Janice and I contacted each other several times, and she made me promise that I would come see her as soon as her mother left. Tina and I had arranged a private lunch for Friday since it was only half a day of school, and I was looking forward to it. I couldn't help but wonder how our lives would have turned out if they hadn't intervened. Loving with Janice will remain one of my favorite memories for a long time. In a way, she restored a part of me that I thought I had lost my faith in myself. I took the first 2 days of work to make sure I would be there for those who needed me at home. Each of my children needed some personal time. I was grateful that I was wise enough to help them understand their emotions. I called a general staff meeting this morning to catch up, and it just ended. Ray, Isabel Rawsing is here. Would like to talk to you if you are free, asked my secretary, looking through the door. Give me a minute to tidy up my desk and then invite her, I replied. I wondered who she was because I had never heard that name before. When I heard their footsteps down the corridor, I stood up. As soon as the lady walked in, I recognized her as Janice's mother. If you look at Janice and her mother, it immediately becomes clear that they are related. Although their hair color was different, their facial features indicated kinship because their physique, appearance, and mannerisms left no doubt about it. Both women were desirable in their own way. It's good to see you again, I said, holding out my hand to her. She took it and said, Thank you for taking the time to meet and for what you did for my only daughter. I'm on my way to the airport to board a private jet and wanted to talk to you before I leave. How is Janice? I asked with interest. I haven't spoken to her since late Sunday. She has come to terms with what is happening and is adapting. She was in better condition than I expected when I arrived, Isabel said. Mostly thanks to you, because you helped her realize that she didn't fail and wasn't to blame for what happened. Thank you for your kind words, I said. How can I help you today? First of all, Janice and I reviewed the file you provided. To be honest, we were both shocked, appalled, and upset by what he showed. This will be useful to her in the divorce. Janice wondered if she was too blind to see what Jesse really wanted and wondered if he married her because he needed a shield. This led to a long conversation between my daughter and me. We discussed everything from her future life to her relationship with you, and it brought us closer than any time since she was a teenager. My face must have given away my reaction because she said, Relax, Mr. Wright, we're adults. Let me explain something. I have 3 children, 2 sons, and an only daughter. All have the same father, whom I never married. Our relationship started as friends with benefits. Their father and I are still in a loving relationship that works for us. He's also about 10 years older than me. The conversation was getting interesting, and I thought it would be long, so I asked the secretary to bring coffee. Our family is originally from Sweden, but now, like most families, we are scattered all over the world, Isabel explained. Due to the failure of my first marriage and the state of our family, I decided it was better to never marry again. That's understandable, I replied, especially when you're dealing with something like what your daughter and I are dealing with. We live individual lives that are layered and complex, but aren't all relationships like that in their own way? Asked Isabel. I won't argue, I said. I have always believed that what happens behind closed doors is no one's business except those who live behind those doors. My words seemed to please Janice's mother because I noticed from her gestures that she began to relax and feel comfortable with me. To properly thank you, the family has decided to conduct a background check on you. Let me say that they were extremely impressed with the reports they received. Both professionally and personally, you have an impeccable reputation, Isabel explained proudly. Expect a call next week asking your firm to submit a proposal to design a new museum for the city of Stockholm, which we are sponsoring. Thank you for the honor, and please call me Ray, I said as the secretary brought out a tray of coffee. I'm sure when I get the request, there will be general details about what it will be used for. As soon as we were served and the secretary closed the door behind her, the conversation became even more interesting. The other woman in the video is a distant third cousin who Janice has never met. I was able to identify Jasmine by her voice. I want to make it clear that she will be punished by the family once they view the file I sent them, Isabel said. This will be done so that she will never become a problem for my daughter or you in the future. After a pause, Isabel continued, even among those considered the elite, there is a certain order. There are things that are not considered acceptable when they become public knowledge, so there are quite harsh ways of dealing with those who are considered undesirable. Thanks, that's good to know, I said. To be honest, I didn't think about Jasmine other than as another advantage in the custody battle. Isabel smiled because she seemed to understand that my main concern was the needs of my children. Janice has found herself, and I think it's mostly because of your long-term developing relationship with her, Isabel said honestly. I'm extremely proud of how she's coping. Her confidence has come to the fore, and it shows. She is a very nice woman for whom I feel affection, and my 3 children love her too, I said. Janice knows that she is a close friend to me and my children, so much so that my kids call her auntie. I understand that very well, and I know what happened before I arrived, including the status of your relationship, Isabel said, even to the point where you helped her cope with the shock when her breasts began to lactate due to overload. I blushed. Isabel smiled and said, Janice said you were a modest person. I see that she is right. This only confirms how well you know each other. Thus, I give my approval to any relationship that you and my daughter decide to develop. Thanks, that means a lot, I replied. If things work out as I hope, Isabel said with a smile, I look forward to her visit with a full set of nannies and the few little children you conceived following at her heels. I laughed because this woman could be brutally honest, and it was refreshing. I realized that I was starting to like her, so I said, would you like to have lunch with me at the club? The pilot is used to waiting for me, so I have all the time in the world, Isabel said. An hour or two won't add much to the cost. I quickly called the club's restaurant to make a reservation, and we headed there. While Isabel instructed the limousine driver, I called Janice and invited her to join us. Janice was waiting for us when we arrived. Mother, Janice said with a slight reproach, I asked you not to interfere. Isabel laughed and smiled before saying, I was just stopping by to let Ray know that he will be given the opportunity to take his firm international. Of course, Janice replied. If I ask Ray if you guys talked about kids, what will he say? Not a word, I replied, because I'm not going to get involved in this. Both Janice and Isabel laughed. Mom, I told you what he's like, Janice said with a smile. He's very careful with what he says. Most thinking men are like that, said Isabel. When everything goes to hell, these are the men who will remain standing. You will always know where you stand with him because whether you like it or not, he will be direct and honest. With that, we headed into the club after Janice, and I exchanged a few soft kisses under the watchful gaze of her mother. Isabel was delighted with our public displays of attention to each other. Lunch, surprisingly, was a success. Isabel loved the quality of the food and the atmosphere of the restaurant. Janice was pleased that her mother and I had begun to build a relationship. Before leaving for security checks, after kissing us goodbye on the cheek, Isabel said, I hope to see you both when Ray does his inspections of the museum's construction. Janice, let me know in advance so I can arrange for your father to be present. We went back to the club to get Janice's car, and I followed her back to her house. As soon as we entered the house, Janice said, I sent you a program that will open and close the gate. Your house key is on the kitchen counter. Mom and I changed everything while she was here. All of Jessia's personal belongings were placed in public storage. When we reached the kitchen, I attached the key to my ring. I started rinsing the coffee pot, and together we started it up. While I sat at the end of the kitchen table, Janice warmed the coffee cups. She unbuttoned her blouse and pulled it out of her pants. As I turned the chair to the side, she came and sat on my lap, taking off her shoes. "Thanks to you, mister," Janice said after the kiss. "My mother will call me every week to see if my baby bump has started to change shape." "Is your father exclusively with your mother?" I asked, thinking about what Tara and I agreed on. "My father is married," Janice explained. "He was the older brother of my mother's first husband. Like my mother, his family is also old money. He is a member of the House of Bernadotte and part of the Swedish royal family. He appears to be 10th in line to the throne." "That explains a lot," I said. "I told your mother that what happens behind closed doors is no one's business except those who live behind those doors." Janice stood up and poured us coffee. After preparing it, she came back and sat on my lap. "Mom and I did some research online about my breast lactation and learned that for some women, it can start at the moment of conception," Janice explained with a big smile. "You're not on contraceptives," I said. "Not since I broke up with Jessie," Janice replied with a laugh. Janice looked into my eyes, and I could see how excited she was by the possibility of us having a baby. I pulled her towards me and kissed her long and tenderly, but demandingly. "You're not wearing a bra," I remarked. "I can't," Janice replied. "My breasts are swelling, and because they were already tight, the bras started leaving red marks." Mom said her breasts reacted the same way when she got pregnant, so with the second and third children she knew before confirming. "What do you hope to gain if it is confirmed that you are pregnant?" I asked. "Mom wants a girl because both my brother's wives have boys," Janice replied. "I don't care, as long as I'm healthy." "We'll have to decide what his last name will be before he's born," I said. "No, you won't have to, because when I talked to my divorce lawyer, I found out that I can legally change my last name to anyone," she said. "So I'll change my last name to Wright." I smiled because I knew she wasn't interested in marriage, and I hadn't thought about it yet either. We both had a lot of issues that needed to be resolved. "By the way, the reason Tara's daughter spent so much time with me on Friday night," I said, "is because earlier that week Tara admitted that I was her father." Janice digested the information for a few minutes before responding, "If you didn't have evidence of Adir and Jessia's behavior, you would never have known." True, because it took Tara seeing that video to realize that Adura had been lying to her since university, I explained. This led to us spending a day going through everything to uncover all of her deceptions over the years. "Now I understand why I saw that look between you," Janice said. "Does this mean Tara wants to reconnect after all these years?" "I'm not sure yet," I replied, "because the emotions are still too strong. Tara and I still have a friendship, but I don't know what it will be until everything calms down." "Where does that leave us?" Janice asked. "Where we are," I said. "Our relationship was formed because of what Adir and Jessie did to us. Our love, friendship, and trust for each other is strong and grows stronger every day." I think I said what I needed to say because Janice stood up from my lap and led us to what she called our bedroom. There, she showed me my new closet and chest of drawers for my clothes. "Cable television is changing social values in America," Janice said. "Promise me that you'll be open to what both Tara and I want, because we both want our father in our lives." A month has passed since Adura was served with the papers, and the New York Times announced the successful merger in the morning paper. What stood out to me was that Adir and Jessia's names were not on the new management. When I called to congratulate my father-in-law, Richard told me that Adir and Jessie were still working for the conglomerate, but had been assigned to manage one of the subsidiaries. This meant their careers and futures were over. At this time, it was confirmed that Janice was indeed carrying our first child. Tina and I became closer, and she was scheduled to become an intern working at a local office for the summer. Tara already knew that something was going on between me and Janice because Janice asked her about changing her last name. Tara and I honestly tried to build a relationship, but we soon realized that we had too much emotional baggage after spending many years with Adir. Tara wanted another child, so she underwent insemination using my sample, which made Janice very happy because our relationship became exclusive. During this process, she met her future husband, the doctor who performed the insemination. According to state law, all three of my children were interviewed by social services. All three stayed with me. During a family meeting, I told my parents, my father-in-law, and my children with Adir that Tina was my daughter. This led to me having to explain how it all happened. It was difficult for everyone to know that their deceptions had lasted so long. Richard and I walked around the estate. He wanted to know how the divorce was going, and if there was anything he could do to speed up the process. That's when he learned there was a good chance my eldest daughter, Debbie, wasn't mine. It took 3 months for the divorces from Janice and I to be finalized. I think Richard's and Jessica's families intervened. We both found ourselves in an advantageous position. As a result, we put our houses up for sale. We both felt it was time for a new beginning. Fortunately, Janice's pregnancy was not yet noticeable because we were going to Stockholm. My father-in-law and mother-in-law looked after the children for a month while I oversaw the start of construction of the museum. My project was chosen because it suited the city and had a minimal carbon footprint. Richard promised to oversee the construction of our new home. Before I went on the trip, I talked to the kids and got their blessings. All three of them were excited about what I had planned. We arrived and were greeted by Isabel and her 2 sons. We were in Stockholm for about a week before we were able to walk down the love path of Crown Princess Victoria and Prince Daniel. This is a hiking trail on the west side of Usblad between the Djursbrunn Canal and the pumping station on the south of Usblad. While enjoying my afternoon, I got down on one knee and asked Janice to marry me. Janice didn't expect this, but fortunately she didn't hesitate. I think it took her less than 10 seconds to scream yes. I admit it was a very emotional moment for her. As soon as I put the ring on her finger, she started showering me with kisses. At 7 in the evening local time, we called the children from my mobile phone in the presence of Janice's parents. We found the perfect way to break the news to them. Debbie put the phone on speaker so we could talk to all 3 kids at once, which I did on my end. Your dad and I would like to see if Debbie and Deanna would be willing to honor us, Janice said, by agreeing to be my bridesmaids. Isabel and Swan were so stunned that Isabel began to cry. Of course, this led to 1,000 questions from everyone that we didn't have answers to, so we had to promise that we would provide all the details as soon as we decided on some issues. When things calmed down, Janice told Isabel that she was expecting the granddaughter she had always wanted. While we were in Stockholm, we learned that Adir Wright, Jasmine and Jesse Yelland had gone missing at sea and the authorities were looking for their plane. I remembered Isabel's promise. We learned that Adir survived, but she had to spend a month on a fishing boat. I don't know what happened, but she came back a broken person and retired to live quietly in the Florida Keys. In the fall, in the second half of September, Janice and I got married. Tina, Debbie, and Deanna were her bridesmaids. My son David and my 2 nephews, a little older than him, stood by my side. Isabel, Swan, and her entire family attended the wedding. Isabel held her 1-month-old granddaughter Issy in her arms the entire time. The wedding took place on the lawn of our new estate. Adir was present. I overheard Debbie and Deanna talking about their mother, who now had to use a cane regularly. Mom made decisions in her life thinking she could have it all, Deanna said. She never thought that karma would have its say. True, but when you compare our parents, Debbie replied, karma gave them back what they deserved. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.